When police arrive at a crime scene, their first tool is their own logic, but the human brain is highly susceptible to manipulation. Under the chaos of trauma or deliberate deception, our initial assumptions can point us in exactly the wrong direction. In February 1986, Los Angeles detectives arrived at the condo of Sherri Rasmussen. They found a brutal scene. The 29-year-old newlywed had fought desperately for her life. Near the front door, the killer had neatly stacked the couple's stereo equipment. Investigators looked at the broken glass, the vicious physical struggle, and those stacked electronics, and formed a highly logical theory. They assumed Sherri had surprised an armed burglar. Given the sheer violence of the hand-to-hand fight, they believed they were hunting a male suspect. Because their reasoning locked them onto the idea of a male intruder, the detectives chased a phantom. The physical evidence didn't align with local burglary suspects. The trail completely evaporated, and a solvable case sat frozen for decades. We see this same vulnerability in victims fighting to survive. Years later, a sex worker we'll call Jane survived a horrific assault in Southern California. Left for dead in a dumpster, she had bravely forced herself to memorize details about her attacker to ensure he would be caught. Jane gave police a pristine description. She told them her attacker drove an immaculate black Cadillac and that she had memorized the last 4 characters of his license plate, 8177. The description was so specific that patrol officers quickly found a black Cadillac with a driver matching the suspect's description in the area. They made an immediate arrest, and Jane positively identified him. The police thought they had an airtight conviction until a routine biological sample processed at the hospital came back. The arrested man's profile did not match the biological evidence left at the scene. Jane's traumatized mind had locked onto the wrong person, and the charges had to be dropped. In Los Angeles, investigative bias created a blind spot. In Santa Ana, acute trauma distorted a victim's memory. Both investigations hit brick walls because human perception is an inherently fragile foundation for a criminal case. To bypass human flaws, investigators use PCR to amplify invisible biological traces into a massive dataset. By isolating 16 specific genome areas, this creates a precise genetic profile. This biological record doesn't forget or succumb to stress. It is inescapable factual evidence. In 2001, the LAPD's cold case unit realized they had a biological record of Sherri Rasmussen's killer. During the initial 1986 investigation, a coroner had swabbed a deep bite mark on Sherri's arm and preserved it in a freezer. This chart shows the sex-determining region of the genetic profile pulled from the killer's saliva. Instead of an X and a Y chromosome, the test revealed 2 X chromosomes. The brutal hand-to-hand fighter who murdered Sherri Rasmussen was a woman. That single biological fact instantly dismantled the entire foundation of the original investigation. A female killer meant the stacked electronics were a decoy, intentionally arranged to trick detectives into assuming a male burglar had panicked. Stripping away the staged burglary revealed a highly personal motive. Detectives compiled a list of women connected to Sherri, leading them straight to Stephanie Lazarus, an active-duty LAPD detective and the ex-girlfriend of Sherri's husband. Biological evidence also solves the problem of geography. The FBI's Combined DNA Index System, or CODIS, continuously cross-references genetic profiles from crime scenes across the country, connecting isolated local files into a national network. 5 years after Jane's attacker walked away, CODIS flagged a man. The profile from the Santa Ana assault perfectly mirrored evidence taken from an attack in Washington state, pointing investigators to aerospace executive Lee Chandler. When California detectives tracked Chandler down, they discovered he did indeed drive a pristine black Cadillac. But when they looked at the plate, the numbers were not 8177. He had a custom vanity plate reading JetBiz. Jane hadn't been lying, but her traumatized brain had been tricked by an optical illusion. A bouncing license plate frame had cropped the top and bottom of the letters. The B looked like an 8, the I was a 1, and the Z's read as 7s. Her eyes failed in the dark, but the cells left behind confirmed Chandler was the man. To physically arrest suspects like Chandler and Lazarus, people with the resources or training to evade interrogation, detectives rely on a tactic called surreptitious collection. Investigators cannot compel an active suspect to provide a cheek swab without tipping them off. However, the law allows police to collect items that a suspect voluntarily discards in a public space, extracting the genetic material left behind on the surface. An internal surveillance team followed Detective Stephanie Lazarus on her day off. When she finished a drink and tossed the plastic soda cup into a public trash can, police immediately recovered the straw to test her saliva. The operation for Lee Chandler required even tighter precision. Detectives tracked his commute, and when he flicked a cigarette butt out of his car window, they temporarily shut down an entire section of the freeway just to retrieve the filter. Those pieces of trash yielded pure, uncorrupted genetic profiles. They provided the exact biological match required to secure arrest warrants, building a wall of irrefutable evidence before either suspect realized they were being hunted. The trap for Stephanie Lazarus was sprung inside her own police headquarters. Littered into a secure interrogation room by detectives she considered colleagues, the question slowly pivoted from stolen art to a 26-year-old murder, cornering her with her own biology. She was convicted of first-degree murder. The staged crime scene that protected her for decades crumbled instantly under the weight of a single swab from a bite mark. Lee Chandler's arrest ended differently. Faced with a biological record of his crimes in 2 different states, he realized his intellect and status could not manipulate physical science. Shortly after making bail, he took his own life. Forensic biology bypassed the flaws of human perception entirely. By stripping away our reliance on traumatized eyewitnesses and deceptive crime scenes, it moved the burden of truth exactly where it belongs, to the inescapable reality of the human cell.